And we're still waiting for Joseph Hayden, who is gonna arrive soon. And we have our own Lech Sean Szporer, activist, artist, and friend.
How do we get creative with criminal or human justice? You know, I mean, even right there, taking the word criminal out of justice and saying human justice is already getting creative with the language that we use when referring to people that are being rounded up in the system. So rather than say someone's a convict or someone's, you know, an inmate, sort of say these are human beings in cages, you know, and try and rehumanize people who have been dehumanized by criminalization. And part of the reason why I asked Jazz too is that he talks about connecting the dots and taking control of the narrative and not using the language of the power structure. And I think that Chino's organization does a lot of that. 5 years ago, I met Susan when I was arrested at Occupy Wall Street. Kept in touch with her. As I've learned about her, I've realized that she's a really amazing person, and one of the good persons in this massive system that is difficult to combat. She's there every day as a criminal defense attorney for, like I said, almost 40 years, and she is fighting for people's rights and trying to keep people from, you know, getting locked up for life or getting sometimes death penalties.
Political movements and activists ranging from people who lock themselves in cages on the street in front of the tombs to people who've been charged or convicted of killing police officers.
There's no horizontal integration. There's no vertical integration. If there's 5 groups out there working on drug policy, the only ones that they talk to individually is their funders.
I choose to work with criminal justice because criminal justice is one of the only things I believe that has its tentacle in every aspect of life. In the school system, in the money system, you know, just in every sphere that we can think about, there's a criminal justice system, right? Even, you know, in the social service system, right? So, you know, in terms of being able to build with people across so many things, simultaneously educating them, simultaneously uplifting them, and you as a person and or organization being a part of that process is very draining. And then when you put it inside, what you was talking about, Jazz, inside the nonprofit industrial complex, which if we look at the history of the nonprofit industrial complex, really start to become big out of the civil rights movement, right? All these 501c3s, and it was used as a form of pacification. Take this $10,000 grant and get about these streets, you know? Focus on this because we're not funding juvenile justice anymore. Now we're funding whatever it is that's hot. Right? So, you know, that's an inhibitor as well. And then, you know, politics, right? I call them politricks because they are tricks. I mean, let's keep it all the way official real quick, right? Let's be 100. A government for the people, by the people. That's a lie. I don't know what democracy looks like in terms of the United States definition because I've never seen that in my lifetime. I watched an interview 2 weeks ago with Malcolm X at UC Berkeley. Right? And he talked about so many things, and I sat there after the interview, I was like, is this from the 50s, 60s, or this from 2015? Because exactly what he was talking about is playing out right now. When we talk about victories without a victor, right? I can say, so well, we pulled this money out of the capital budget, and we stopped this expansion of state, which we did. Was that a victory on its face? And for, you know, the funding proposals that definitely funded us to do these things, I'm sure. But what was on the heels of that, right? Was, you know, No Child Left Behind, right? It was cops in schools. It was building more infrastructure in terms of criminalizing our young people. It was gearing up more stop and frisk and quality of life laws that dramatically changed the quality of life of my people in my community by constantly over-criminalizing them.
As there are many white educators in the charter system, Black History Month is February coming up, and it's used to fuel an agenda of submission of Black youth, men and women, in a system, and it's used as a submission using peaceful protest as a way to get your message across, and as opposed to using a more forceful form of protest. So I'm asking, what do I say to the youth that I educate? Do I say that art is enough? Do I tell them that, oh, use art as your fire, bring that to the forefront? Is that how to confront the system that needs to change? To quote you, Lech, I look around and I see, like, you know, you use all of these performances as a way to protest this. But can I tell that to my Black youth that I teach every day? This is the way to change. This is the way to use art to your advantage. Is art enough?
In America, politics is the game in town. You know, all struggles are supposed to be about power, you know, addressing the question of power. Right? Who makes decisions about how we live, and what's a crime, what's not a crime. You know, all of these are made in the political process. You know, demonstrations only bring attention to the problem. The problem has to be solved in the political process, right? But we avoid the political process like it's a plague.
$64.6 million out of the capital budget for the expansions of 2 juvenile facilities. And I remember one action we did in City Hall was on, you know, Valentine's Day. So we gave out candy hearts and have, you know, all of these big posters and signs and makeshift jail cells asking, you know, does New York City love schools and jails? So, I mean, I think there's definitely, you know, I wouldn't say there's a disconnect. I think it's about looking in the right place for this kind of art. I think you can kind of see it, you know, in what you did, Lech, and different poetry pieces and different underground artists who are talking about these things. But in terms of mainstream art, yes, there's a definitely disconnect, and is a complete reason why there is a disconnect. You know, the powers that be, the people who own media and things like that don't want these things, you know, publicized. They don't want people to know about that for all the reasons we know to be.
I think artists have to have their own voice, and if an artist wants to pursue activist actions or action art or interventions, or if they don't want to, you can't blame them either way. I think that, like, when you look at the Wall Street movement, the Occupy Wall Street movement, I would like to see more artists involved. You know, some I believed a lot in. I watched what they did, but I couldn't actually participate for obvious reasons. And when you look at the say, like, the revolution in the late '60s in France, the artists, it actually started with art students, and one of the beautiful things about that was the posters they made and plastered the walls with them, and I think that was missing in Occupy Wall Street. You know, I know artists were involved and they did things, but they didn't get arrested for that. I mean, but now we're looking at them maybe overreacting, you know. So I mean, so an artist has to be even braver to do these things, you know. Mauricio Catalan did a burglary once in Amsterdam of an art gallery because he didn't have an idea. One thing though is that nowadays they don't have a sense of humor and they're not very tolerant. I mean, so you will be taking a bigger chance. I'm really happy they didn't throw the book at you with this, and I thought the worst, you know, and they could have, and they did, and I think that's because of your charm. I'm real serious. You must have really charmed them. Like they saw you were sincere and you were polite, and you know. But they could have charged you with bigger charges, I would assume.
How do you get to the heart of a person? How do you change a person's mind and their heart about something that has been indoctrinating them from birth, right? And that's one of the biggest issues, which is why, you know, I feel like the Center for New Leadership for me was a godsend. Because they're one of the few organizations that understand that to do this work, it's not just community, it's not just individual, it's not just the system, it's also the individual mind and heart of a person and being able to struggle with them through that, right? and connecting those kind of things, right? Because once you strip away all of these things, racism, sexism, all of these isms that we have going on, we're left with just humans, right? Which is why human justice is so powerful, because if your starting point is criminal, it will never be justice. And it would never be kind of like actualized.
This system was designed it's got the worst history in the world. Colonial settlers, genocide of the Indians, enslavement of the black population, Jim Crow, segregation, everything. And they running around the world killing people. I was in prison. I got kicked out of every school I've ever been to. Starting with kindergarten, I ended up in the 32nd precinct, sitting on the sergeant's desk waiting for my mother to come from work. No difference between the keeper and the kept. They come from the same neighborhoods. They grew up in the same neighborhoods. They buy into the same culture. And the biggest population of correction officers on Rikers Island are not white males, not white women, or black males. It's black females.
And then we have the 13th Amendment, which is, nobody's going to be treated like a slave unless you're considered a criminal. So then suddenly it hits you, and everybody can kind of read the Constitution and say, well, wait a minute, we're not actually dealing with the behavior of treating someone as a slave. All we do is change the label from slave to criminal, and then we find some means of criminalizing someone.
People in jail are not just people. They are citizens. And they're entitled to all the rights of citizenship, But they lost their freedom, right? And their freedom is taken away in contradiction to the Constitution with excessive bail. Right? This is the largest jail in the world. In the world. Right? And it's filled with poor people. Specifically poor people of color. Right? If you reform the bail laws, and that would have to come from the legislature, again, you could turn it into affordable housing, and or university, just for the same poor people that you had in there, right? And all it takes is the political will to do this. I mean, because the bail system obviously isn't working. It's not working.
Or is it working directly how they want it to?
Yes. I mean, it's working. Everything works the way they want it to work.
Right.
I will agree with you there, right? The point I'm trying to make is that we have to find common ground for us to come together.
I think about this a lot. I was a lawyer during the height of the crack wars in New York City, and used to sit in courtrooms that were literally conveyor belts of young, mostly African American and Latino people being carted off to jail for small sales of drugs to mostly undercover police officers. Whether you agree with what they were convicted of doing, which, no offense to you, Charlie, was killing police officers, the choices that they made were choices that were not out of personal aggrandizement, or they were part of political movements that responded, rightfully or wrongly, to the oppression that the police departments waged on primarily communities of color and activist communities. And we like to talk about mass incarceration with the low-hanging fruit. We can all agree that nonviolent, offenders and low-level drug people should get out, and even the Republicans agree on that now. But the harder questions are the ones who are not in, who are in for acts of antisocial violence and the communities that they come from need to try to, and all of us need to try to address that, about what kind of communities do we want to build and participate in. I'm a child of the 60s, so I grew up at a time when there was a sense of optimism that you could, that the world was changing and you could participate in that change. Happy to get a different job. I'm happy to retire and go work in a bookstore. I'm like an oncologist, you know, I want more work, so I want more cancer. I want less work, so we need to struggle to build communities of peace and collegiality and support, so that people won't be caught up in the system, and we'll have some other view or vision of what kind of world that they want to live in. So
That also looks like building with the CEOs who are on Rikers Island. These are still people, right? So that might mean a campaign to get these folks retrained or re-educated in something completely different. Whether it's mentoring, whether it's education, whatever that kind of might look like. And that would be a way to kind of get everybody on the same page, right? Because we all have a common interest. If you look at I don't know if you've seen that commercial that's on TV. It's about correction officers saying, we're assaulted every day. I see my partner get his head bust wide open. And, I'm afraid that to defend myself that would I have a job the next day. We feel like New York City does not have our back. Anybody seen that commercial? That commercial is real because these are also people. So getting them on board and also having an exit strategy. I think it's unresponsible just, to not have things in place for the people who are coming home. I will say I don't know of folks who are doing that. I know a lot of people sprouting a lot of rhetorical jargon about it, but I don't know of any actual on-the-ground work that's happening to reduce the populace by 50% and or shut down Rikers Island. Do I think it's possible? Yes, because we helped shut down Spofford, which anybody might have known was a notorious, horrible juvenile facility that I was incarcerated myself in. So yeah, I think it's possible. I think it takes a lot of work, and I think it takes a lot of people getting in the same room. I definitely think it takes people putting their egos in their pockets so they can protect their humanity. I think it takes, building in such a way that they have no choice but to shut it down. When I say the they, taking that they and shaping it and making it become an us. Would I like to see the Rikers Island become? I don't know. The energy is so tainted there. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I would live there if it was free housing. I don't know if I would go there if it was a school. Could we shut it down and turn it into a museum and start making some money, charging folks to come view the atrocities that happen so we make sure it doesn't come again and use that money to put in our communities? Absolutely. That was just one of my ideas.
they are responding to a public consensus or a public conversation about the necessity for there to be change in how laws are enforced, in how particularly communities of color are policed in a way that has an impact. I don't pretend that Michelle Alexander's book is going to lead to the overthrow of the American government, but I don't want us to get so cynical that we stop doing something that's about change. And we all do that change differently. We do it in art, we do it in organizing, we do it in writing, we do it in better policing, all those things. So we want to come out of here with a feeling that yes, things are really shitty and there's a history of genocide and violence in this country. So what are we as participants in these communities going to do about it? And I think we need to do something that's going to make a change. And we're beginning to see it go. So there is an ability to make change, however small. We change because we all change, and how we deal with these issues and talk to these issues to our friends and our families and our communities. So.
And I think part and parcel of that is that there has been a culture shift with folks, and I think that's happened through successful campaigns that have made folks aware of the atrocities that are happening. And I think that's also due to the atrocities that are, it has definitely the hardest impact and effect on people of color, but now have started to trickle out to white folks, but specifically to Rikers Island and closing down. Do I think it's possible? Absolutely. You know, I think it would take everybody understanding this is a protracted war and we cannot all be in the same place at the same time.
What difficulties do you see as a lieutenant at a precinct with working with police officers in the community? And as a correctional officer from in the past, how do you see, as Chino brought up, this idea of working with correctional officers or police officers to almost get trained to be skilled in another way of working or another job entirely?
I did do time to join as a correctional officer, you know, but we're doing time too. I was doing 16-hour days, you know, so I got to see it inside firsthand, right? I see people that I saw in the Fed on the street, and I never will hesitate to say hello or go to dinner with a guy, you know. They respect me, I respect them, and we learn that inside the prison. I have to approach people in there as humans, which I think we all want to be treated as humans. So does the police officer and the correctional officer as well. I do have family members who, we even have distant cousins, my uncle's cousins who are doing life, and that's for heavier crimes, you know. Bail reform, we're all doing bail reform, you know. Bail is the purpose of bail is to keep the person who you think is a flight risk. That's what the real purpose of bail should be. If they don't think he's going to show up for court, you give him bail, you know. The way it works now is we arrest someone, we call the municipal judge, he gives him bail. They usually give low bails unless we ask them for a higher bail. You know, we will tell them we want higher bail on this guy. We don't want him to get out. And then with the first degree crimes, we call Superior Court judge, and they give big bails because that's big crimes. You know, you're talking first degree crimes. You know, and he used the bail bondsman. They take 10% as their fee at least. But I mean, he did make bail. But if I have a woman who's battered by a man and she doesn't want to get a TRO, a restraining order, and I'll tell the judge, and we try to tell her, get the restraining order. Don't let this. He's going to get bailed out. We'll tell the judge, try to keep him in a couple of days. Make the bail a little higher. You know, like there's different things. In Chicago, who kills a kid and shoots him 16 times. But there's 800,000 who have millions of interactions daily and save your grandmothers with their heart attacks and run into buildings when they're burning when we're not supposed to, but we do it anyway because we get there before the fire department. All the good that they have done have been erased.
Yo, I hear this phrase about good policemen. You know, silence is consent. Silence is consent. The only good policemen are those that come out and speak up.
I do want to defend us, you know, the guys and the girls on the street. We aren't the problem. We do our job. The problem is the system, and the system is economic.
How can your job be shooting and murdering people?
And it's not just one.
And it's not just one.
Right.
The reason why this has become popular is because it's the age of technology. Now think about before everybody had a smartphone in their pocket. And think about, you know, you have to get it out and you have to film it. So many things that happen. And I'm going to put this out. I don't usually tell people this. My father was a cop. Not really my father, my sperm donor. So I know firsthand that happened. How did he become my sperm donor? Because he took advantage of my egg donor and raped her, and that's how I became. And I'm third generation incarcerated. So I get to have a little bit of the insight on this way and that way because his family later on in life decided to reach out to me and learn who I was. And they were Italian. And I had to deal with nigga this and nigga that like I wasn't part black. You know what I'm saying? So I know you feel the need to want to defend them, and I get that. The problem here is that it is humans. Justice is not blind. She sees very clearly. It is people who are pulling this trigger that are not paid to do that. It is people using their feelings and emotions and their own judgment calls to why they let folks out. Matter of fact, you talked about it earlier when it said, hey, Lech, you must have been very nice and polite. Right? What does being nice and polite have to do with your rights?
It has a lot to do.
Or your nice and polite should not have nothing to do
It
with
has a lot to do with it.
But it shouldn't.
There was a point I was getting to. Okay. Is that the problem is money. They use us to enforce their laws, but they also are raising a lot of revenue. It's what people don't get. The whole thing about ticket quotas, they do push numbers, tickets, arrests, numbers, and a lot of cops who are human. And they're your neighbors, they're your brothers. And a lot of them have brothers and sisters, and we all relate. Not all, but most relate. And are from the same neighborhoods. We're all from the same neighborhood, we're all neighbors, right?
But it's true.
Well, okay, but the problem is I'm sitting here telling you something and nobody wants to listen to me. I'm trying to tell you the problem. It's numbers. They're pushing, and cops tell them, we don't want ticket quotas. I don't think a good cop goes out and makes as many arrests. It's not about numbers, it's about quality. And they want numbers. They want, because they're making revenue. Huh?
And racism. You don't get a bonus when you shoot a young black kid in the back. You don't get a bonus when you lock up somebody for asserting their rights, whether they were polite or not. It's also racism. Let's be for real.
Even with people that commit crimes, not just the victims of
right. I know in Bed-Stuy, which I grew up and I'm a part of. Yo, man, I don't know any grandmothers that got saved. You know what I'm saying? I don't know anybody that was like, oh my God, I'm so glad NYPD was here. NYPD is the after fact. Now, when I say the after fact, they show up after somebody gets shot. They show up after somebody get robbed. They show up after somebody get raped. They show up after somebody get murdered. How in the hell is that possible when we have one of the largest forces of police officers in the country? How?
Class. We have to stop looking at things from a racial perspective, right? I mean, that's the first thing, that's one of the major obstacles that we have to overcome. We have to begin to see things in terms of class. We all human beings. You know, we all human beings. You know, so what difference does it make what color your skin is? You live closer to the sun and you live further from the sun.
It makes a difference in terms of when you're being racially profiled. It makes a difference in terms of like social service. It makes a difference. I mean, but overall, when we look at the system, they're a part of that. And you can't just blindly follow orders. The Nazis said the same thing when they was caught up in the Holocaust. They said, we was just following orders. So my thing is what side of history do you want to be on?
Did you ever see our movie? And the movie, The Experiment, right, what they did was, say like we got this group of people, right? They put them all in the jail, they made some of them COs, and they incarcerated some of them. And what happened was, it was a bet where they couldn't put their hands on them physically to restrain them, and they won a certain amount of money after the experiment. The COs, the power started going to their head once they got in control. Because the whole thing is, they all with the same group of people. Now the problem is, if you're taking people from your neighborhood, your neighbors and they police, they got the same mentality as everybody else in the neighborhood. So what makes you less than a criminal than me? You're a killer too. If you're saying I'm a shooter, you my neighbor. You must be a shooter too.
Class is exactly the same, right? Exactly the same. Poor whites and poor blacks. They put them together and they maintain social control, right? Because I don't think, poor whites, if you go and watch any of the debates and you see Trump, there, that population he's talking to is the same population that the military is drawn from and the police are drawn from, They have been sold a bill of goods, man, about white skin privilege and white skin superiority that is no longer valid. And they threw in with the ruling class in this country.
It's not just race. It's not just class. It's not just gender. It's like all of these things that play out depending on a situation. But overall, what happens is black kids die. They get shot. What happens is people of color go to prison. What happens is there is a ruling class, and that populace is white, cisgender men. These are things that we cannot deny. Do I look through everything through a lens of race? No. But can I back that in and just say you're human when you're clearly using your white skin privilege to get over and do certain things? Absolutely not. It does us a disservice as humans to think we could just do away with what America has institutionalized in the last 500 years. We can't. It might take 500 more to do it. Can we be optimistic and work in different ways? Absolutely. But that takes a lot of people admitting a lot of things about themselves and the things that they're a part of that might not have the sweetest taste coming out of their mouth.